Welcome to the MBYLL Coaches Certification for 5th through 8th graders. I'm your host, Martin Bose. In this video, we're gonna really primarily focus on drills. So I'm just gonna write out several drills here, some for stick work, some for shooting, some for full team play, some for some two-man games and things from the sideline, ways you can start to challenge your team in different ways. I'll throw my 2 cents in on how I approach this with the older age groups, and hopefully it can add value to you in your season. The first drill, really simple, star passing. All right, so this is a 5-line drill. Most people are already in tune with this drill. Just want to use this because regardless of what age we are, this is something that can be used to build chemistry, right, and get our sticks and feet moving right at the beginning of practice, right? Usually we'll start the balls in this lower corner here. This would be the first cone. This is the second, third, fourth, and fifth. So in that order, the ball is going to go diagonal, straight across, diagonal, and then diagonal up to this top person who's going to catch this one, come in, and take a shot. All right, after they shoot, they would just hop back into this first line. So this is just a simple follow your pass drill. After you throw to 2, right now you're on the way, you're gonna hop into that line, so on and so forth. All right, with these older guys, they can definitely get 2 balls going at the same time. So once this ball reaches this second line and it's on its way over to the third line, that next ball can get tossed, and so there's gonna be a lot of movement here. So not only are we working on getting our feet and hands moving, but now we've got to keep our head up because there's so much movement. We don't want to be running into each other. We got to communicate through that. If you feel the need because it's starting to dull down, you can always switch this to be the side that the ball starts, and you would just reverse it. So you go the opposite direction, but the top line would always be the shot. So that's our star passing drill. For this next drill, I call it elbow shooting. We simply have 2 lines, right? Balls in both lines, and athletes should have a ball on their stick as they step up to line. As this drill gets started, let's say the first person in line does not have a ball on their stick. And so all it's gonna be is this person is gonna throw a pass all the way across. This person is going to step to the ball, catch, and then shoot. After they shoot, they're gonna head back to this other line. So it's a continuous shooting drill, and this is an awesome opportunity for us to focus on the fundamental skill of stepping to the ball. All right, and this takes a lot of discipline. So what I've found to be helpful is adding these cones out here in space that make this line a little bit more obvious for the athletes. Because as that ball is in the air, right, this athlete knows that they're gonna shoot. And so what they tend to do is they sort of just split the middle and they start cutting halfway in between the ball and halfway towards the net at this diagonal angle, where when we apply this to a game situation, that's where the defender is going to be, right? And they're going to be shortening that slide. So instead, we want to emphasize staying above this cone, AKA step hard to the ball, and then after it enters your stick, now you can think about stepping down for that shot. So we're really focusing here on the act of stepping to the ball for this elbow shooting drill. All right, this is also a really good opportunity for us to focus on what hand should we be catching in and what type of shot should we be taking. So for a lot of these athletes, and a lot of coaches would say, if you're in this line, do everything lefty. If you're in this line, do everything righty. You don't have to, all right? You really don't have to. So I would argue it'd be more beneficial for our athletes to be catching the ball in their strong hand, right? Maybe shooting in their weak hand. But what I can do is if I'm a lefty in this line, all right, and I step to that ball and I do not trust myself catching righty, right, I'm going to be really nervous and there's likely a mistake about to happen. Whereas if I step to that ball lefty, yes, the pressure is going to be to my left, but what I can do is I can receive and then I can immediately swivel my hips so that my, as a lefty, right shoulder will be facing the pressure, similar to how I'm set up to you right now. Right? So you can stay lefty in this line, and then vice versa. You could stay righty in this line. All right? And as we progress this drill, right, to catching and then making a move, right, we want our athletes to be playing to their strengths. Okay? Yes, we would like them to have the ability to go to their weak hand, maybe shoot on the run in their weak hand, but to think that they're going to be symmetrical, I think is a tall ask. So what we want to try to emphasize is, having the skill set of receiving a ball in your strong hand, but understanding how to utilize your hips to immediately alter your body position upon receiving to prioritize ball protection and stick protection. So to progress this drill into what would be catching and then making a move is the same initial focal point is at play. I want you to step to the ball. It's the most important piece here. All right, and then instead of just stepping to the cage, what we would then emphasize them to do is square up their defender. So after, let's say this is a righty, to keep it simple, this is a righty stepping to the ball, and right after they catch, what I want them to do is square up to their defender, and that allows them to have the option to go left or right. So once they're square, right, they can step over top side and take a shot on the run or a jump shot or a set shot, whatever they want to do, or they can split and go down the alley and take this shot lefty, right? The other option, right, would be if, say, I have a player that's more of like a Canadian style player and they really do not trust their weak hand, you could still take this space. You could still split, but instead of actually switching hands, that's going to be a face dodge, right, ready to handle pressure on this right shoulder. And then once you create enough separation, you're going to swivel your hips and you can take that shot righty, which a lot of people would argue that that's actually a better hand to be shooting in, right? If I'm shooting righty on this side of the field, right, my stick is closer to the center line of the field, right? So that's just a simple shooting drill that we want to implement, but there's those important coaching cues that we want to emphasize, priorities of stepping to the ball and handling pressure well. Okay, this next drill I call alley 1v1. So now we're going to start to get our guys to compete a bit. So I call this alley 1v1s because we're working within an alley. So I have these 3 cones set up on each side. This is basically our boundary system, all right? It doesn't necessarily mean dodging down the alley. We're just in this corridor to work. This line is our defense line. This line is our offense line. A lot of times I'll have the defense start without a stick. You don't have to, but we're really focused on our footwork defensively. That's what this main focus of this drill is. So what we do is we start by letting this defensive player roll the ball or throw the ball up to this offensive player. Now this offensive player has it in their stick. The defense is working on sprinting, and then when they get to this threshold, right, these 2 cones that we put out beforehand, that means as soon as they get to this line, the offense can go, all right? The defense's job is try to either push the offense out of bounds or maybe even take the ball away, but prevent them from crossing this line. This is basically the end zone, all right? So there's no goal in this drill, right? The end goal, the objective for the offensive player is to get past this line within the boundaries. The defensive player's job is to push them out, all right? And the nuance here that we really want to teach our defenders is the ability to backpedal after breaking down. So when this defender sprints upfield, approaches, and the offensive player starts to sprint at them, all right, this is going to be crucial for our midfielders, is having the ability to control the gap, right? So the gap is the distance between the offensive player and the defensive player. As the offensive player sprints, right now, you could argue the offensive player is controlling the gap because he's closing it, right? While this defensive player reads that the offensive player is dodging in an aggressive manner, they are going to take their first steps backwards. Okay, so the skill set that we're really working on right now as the defensive player is being able to control themselves after sprinting and initiating a back pedal at the right time, right? As this offensive player starts to attack, eventually they're going to pick to go either left or right, and at that point, that is when the defensive player can then open up their hips and try to engage, all right? There's a lot of different factors that are going to play into when a player should backpedal, depending on where we are on the field, right? Because this isn't necessarily in context as to are we dead center on the field? Are we dodging from the wing? Are we at X? There's a lot of different things that would come into play as to how this defender might play it differently. But simply put, in this environment, what I want the defender to understand is if you sprint up, right, and this offensive player starts running at you and you are still running at them, the offensive player has a huge advantage. So the key to start to nuance these defensive players to break down at the correct time is that as that offensive player starts to run, The deceleration, the ability to stop, right, and then backpedal is the skill set that we want them to work on, right? Once that offensive player picks a side, that's when we'll engage, okay? The context as to taking this onto the field, if the defensive player has the ability in a real game scenario to close the gap to the point where you're already on them as they are catching the ball, that's ideal, right? Where they can catch the ball and they don't even get a chance to run at us, right? But a lot of times you start to play against better teams, they're gonna dodge, they're gonna swing the ball, and they're gonna dodge again. So now you're gonna have someone that's being dodged that has to step out at someone who's sprinting full speed at them. That's the hardest time to play defense, and this is the skill set that's gonna help us with that. Okay, drill flow wise, let's try not to have more than 3, maybe 5 people in a line, and you could easily set up multiple stations of this where you have athletes doing this drill side by side to minimize how much time they're waiting around, right? So we want to prioritize our drill flow. Shorter lines is better, but the nuance of this drill is something that a lot of athletes struggle with defensively. So I found this environment to be really, really helpful in teaching it.